Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Layla, and for this video we're going to be talking about what's going on with student loan debt and student loan debt cancellation. It has been some time since I've made a video about student loan debt, the student loan debt cancellation that was announced in August specifically, or was it September? I can't remember. We were supposed to see that relief come through by the end of December 2022, but of course there were several challenges, so that's been on pause since October 2022 or so. But then on February 28th, there was oral arguments presented in the Supreme Court, and that's basically what I'm going to go over and kind of where we stand now with the student loan debt cancellation. I do want to start by saying that this video is pretty much just going to be factual. I actually have CNN pulled up where it goes into detail of what was said during all of this happening. So I'm not going to put my opinion into this too much. Whenever I make these videos, there are a lot of rude comments. And basically my stance on this is it is what it is. Like, I don't make the rules. There's nothing that I can control with this whatsoever. Like, this was put into place by President Joe Biden. He is the current president. This is a current thing happening. So within the next year, he's still going to be president, more than likely. So there's nothing here that we can control. I am not expecting for this cancellation to happen. It would be crazy. That would be awesome. Like, that gives me an extra $20K to work with, of course, but I'm not expecting that. I'm going to pay my student loan debt no matter what. Whichever amount that I end up needing to pay for my student loan debt, whether that be the $36K that I have remaining or whether that's $16K after $20K gets canceled, I'm gonna pay it, you know? Yeah, I think overall all of this has been just quite frustrating and a little bit annoying because it has put even more of a divide in this country amongst people, amongst politics. I'm not a huge person on politics. I don't like to talk about it or share my opinion of it too much because no matter what, you're not going to make people happy. So yeah, that's just how I see this at this point. Like, it is what it is. Whichever way it goes I don't have control over that, and none of us do at this point. Anyways, we're just going to talk about the facts here. So as I said, back in September, August 2022, it was announced by the Biden administration that they would be forgiving up to $20,000 of student loan debt for federal student loan borrowers. There were some qualifications for getting that cancellation. So, you know, being under a certain income, all of these things you'll probably already know if you are watching this video or if you have federal student loan debt. There were quite a few challenges against this. Some of them went away. There was, you know, no valid standing behind them. So those didn't matter. But then there were a couple that stuck around, which is what ultimately put a pause on this cancellation. And it had to go to the Supreme Court for there to be a back and forth, and then a decision will eventually be made. The first case is Biden versus Nebraska. A little bit misleading because Nebraska is involved in this, but it's not the only state. So this was, I think, 6 Republican-led states and conservatives that challenged the program, saying that it's an unlawful attempt to erase, you know, several $100 billion of federal student loan debt under the pandemic, like using the pandemic as an excuse to erase that. The second case is Department of Education versus Brown. This was initially brought by 2 individuals who did not qualify for the program, the cancellation, and they argue that the government failed to follow proper rulemaking process when putting it into place. I think that second case is interesting. I'm surprised that that one was still involved in this, that it still caused a holdup. I can kind of understand the Biden versus Nebraska one making it through, but I would think that other one involving the 2 individuals would get shut down. So it's been several months since these cases were first brought up, and then the Supreme Court met on these. And basically a series of arguments continued for hours and hours. I'm going to share a couple of those that are against the cancellation and a couple that are for. I'm not going to lie and pretend that I understand what all of this means, because whenever court is involved and lawyers are involved, they use those strangest words and make it as difficult for us normal people to understand what these things mean. A lot of this I am going to be reading from the actual website. I can link this down below. It's from CNN, and they have, you know, literal quotes pulled from these oral arguments. I'm going to try to break it down as best as I can. First is Chief Justice Roberts, and he's holding a case against the student loan debt cancellation. He brought up the major questions doctrine, and under this doctrine, if an agency acts in a way that could have major political or economic implications, it must have the authority of Congress. So basically what they're saying is that the student loan debt relief plan is too large to implement by the Biden administration. This is something that should go through Congress, not something that should be decided by the Biden administration alone. Continuing with arguments against the student loan debt cancellation, it looks like it was brought up multiple times, the unfairness around the cancellation. Americans who did not go to college or already paid off their student loans won't see a direct benefit from Biden's program. A one-time cancellation of federal student loan debt does nothing to bring down the cost of college for future borrowers. And then this is also unfair to people who have paid their loans and people who are not eligible for loans in the first place. Now, the person in charge of the arguments for student loan debt cancellation is U.S. Solicitor General Elizabeth Prelogar. I'm not sure if I'm saying her last name right. I looked it up and there were multiple ways that people were pronouncing it, but Elizabeth Prelogar, she was arguing for student loan debt cancellation, and her response to the unfairness of student loan debt cancellation is that Congress has already made the judgment that when there's a national emergency that affects borrowers in this way, the Secretary can provide relief. She pointed to language in the HEROES Act that says the Education Secretary can waive or modify federal student loan programs to ensure that borrowers are not placed in a worse position financially in relation to that financial assistance. Looks like she also argued specifically against that second case, the Department of Education versus Brown, where it was two student loan borrowers, Myra Brown and Alexander Taylor. She said they don't have the legal right or standing to bring the case. Neither plaintiff would qualify for the maximum amount of debt relief. Brown doesn't qualify at all because her loans are privately held, and Taylor is only eligible for up to $10,000 of debt relief, not $20,000, because he did not receive a Pell Grant while enrolled in college. They claim to want greater loan forgiveness than the plan provides, but they asked this court to hold that the HEROES Act doesn't authorize loan forgiveness at all. If the Biden program is struck down, not only would the plaintiffs get no relief at all, but no one else would either. Parties cannot go to court to make themselves and everyone else worse off. These are just a couple of examples from each side, but there were a lot more arguments that were presented. Many of the things I don't completely grasp, I don't completely understand, and frankly, it's not that important for us as individuals because we're not getting to vote on this or anything of that sort. But as of right now, we still don't have any answers, so we're still just kind of hanging around, floating around in this student loan debt cancellation bubble. Is it going to happen? No clue. If you applied for student loan debt cancellation or you signed up for those emails way back in September about the cancellation, then you probably got an email from the U.S. Department of Education, from Secretary Cardona specifically. Basically, it sounds like they are confident. It literally says it. Our administration is confident in our legal authority to adopt this plan, and today made clear that opponents of the program lack standing to even bring their case to court. While opponents of this program would deny relief to tens of millions of working and middle-class Americans, we are fighting to deliver relief to borrowers who need support as they get back on their feet after the economic crisis caused by the pandemic. They also mentioned when to expect to start paying student loan debt back, when the payments will resume. Nothing has really changed here. So we're still waiting on the Supreme Court's decision. Don't know how long that will take. It could be tomorrow. It could be in the next few months. Payments will resume 60 days after the Supreme Court announces its decision. So if they make a decision today, we would, have to start making student loan debt payments in 60 days. However, if the Supreme Court has not made a decision or resolved the litigation by June 30th, then payments will resume 60 days after that. So it will be in August, late August, or the first day of September when payments would resume. I'm not even going to guess on when I think the payments would resume because I have no clue when the Supreme Court could come up with a decision. Just know that it could be in 60 days or in, until August or September. But just keep that in mind. Make sure that you are prepared to start making your payments again sooner rather than later, just in case. I guess the only thing I will say is that I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think there's going to be any cancellation at all. But just like we've been doing for years now, we will wait and see what happens. But hopefully this video was informational and gave you a little bit more clarity on what is going on with the student loan debt situation. I will link down below anything relevant to this, including what I've been reading off of. If I missed anything really important that you think I should have called out, definitely leave that down below in the comments. If you have any specific questions, please feel free to leave those down below as well. I will try my best to answer them. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I would really appreciate if you give this video a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in my next video.